Greetings and felicitations.
Hip, hip, hurrah, tally-ho.
Here we are back again with my little George Peach.
And I'm here with my puddin'.
And we're going to talk about Star Trek Lower Decks. Episode entitled Temporal Edict. Or is it Temporal Edict?
Temporal Edict. Okay, so in this one we have the Lower Decks crew talking about buffer time, and the captain overhears something about it, that they pad extra time into their estimates of how long it will take them to do something. So the captain wants everybody to stop doing that. Like, now you only get so much time to do your task, and then you have to go on to the next task. She wants to keep everyone busy. I mean, basically busy and frantic the way she is. You know how the captain is so high-strung all the time? And it's like she's trying to make the crew be that high-strung. And so, like now they're being stressed out.
And Lower Decks wouldn't be Lower Decks without doing some kind of goofy comedy thing right off the bat. So we start out with Brad Boimler, and since being talented in classical music is associated with being boring, that's what Brad does. And of course, Mariner comes up and just starts loudly playing a guitar.
Well,
it's
like
the exciting thing.
Okay, so it's the ship talent show, basically.
Yes.
So Boimler was up, everyone didn't like him, and then Mariner comes up and starts playing so loud that the Klingon ship out in space can hear it.
Yeah. I mean, I just, there's certain things within, I'm watching the Star Trek universe animated, just like the original animated series. They did things that made sense for the Enterprise at that time. I just can't imagine this happening on the NCC 1701D. It just seems too absurd to me.
Well, that's why this is a different ship.
Yes, and it's, obviously I'm going to keep watching the show, but I just don't get it. It's just not made for me. I'm just not getting the quote unquote humor behind any of this. What did you think about that part?
Well, since we were talking about that, yeah, the talent show part, I didn't mind that part. That was okay. It was later into the episode, I just kind of thought, that
as it goes on,
me.
It gets even more and more ridiculous. And the most obvious omission that they made with this part of Mariner supposedly being a rock or a punk guitarist is this would have been the perfect point to have her play Iron Maiden's Rime of the Ancient Mariner. They missed the boat there. I mean, but knowing Star Trek, or CBS, they're too cheap to pay Maiden for their song. But that would have been awesome because the tie-in would have been epic.
The thing about adding the buffer time, you realize that comes from Star Trek 3, when Scotty said that he always multiplies his time estimates by 4. And since he said that, it's been brought up in other Star Trek circles about how Scotty, adds to his time. And then they wrote it into the episode Relics, where Scotty advised Geordi.
Yes, and I thought that was frustrating when he said it to Geordi.
Right, because in Star Trek 3, I really thought Scotty was joking about that. I didn't think he was serious.
Same thing.
But somehow other people, like the scriptwriters, took it as serious and kept it later on.
Because I always viewed Scotty as a miracle worker, not as one who fudges the numbers.
Right, he really can do the impossible, and even in the amount of time that it takes. I mean, I don't feel like he really needed to add to his time. So now we have this crew on the Cerritos. So the captain has decided no more buffer time. Okay, so there's that storyline. Then there's the storyline when they're down on the planet, and you have the first officer, Ransom. We get to see him more in this episode. Mm-hmm. And we see him with Mariner. And the two of them, they have an okay relationship. Of course they fight. And it just got kind of boring to me, the whole scene with when they started fighting, when they were locked up together, and then when Ransom was fighting the vendor in the arena. Mm-hmm. It somehow, like, at this part, it just was not interesting to me. And Ransom,
it's just too ridiculous.
And Ransom stabbing Boimler in the foot, I did not think that was funny. I mean, maybe we just take Star Trek too seriously. A lot of people
Yeah.
enjoy this show. I've seen a lot. Well, hate it or love it. People go both ways with it, but so then we have Ransom. When he's fighting the Vendor, he takes his shirt off. I mean, that's okay with me. That it's a cartoon, and so he had to do the Kirk thing.
Obviously, he's going to be the parallel of Kirk.
And Riker as well, but yes.
Well, Riker was the Kirk, of course,
right.
of Next Generation. Yeah, we know that.
And, so he does the noble thing. He doesn't kill the alien, and even though he could have.
Which that's a Star Trek moment there.
Right, and that was good.
That was good.
Then we have, but you can see this between Mariner and Ransom, that maybe, I think they are kind of hinting that those two may be in a relationship later, which would be fine with me.
Yeah.
So these little some little things about it are okay. The general plot, it just wasn't, it wasn't that gripping. It wasn't that funny. I mean.
Agreed.
And in the end, the captain, when she finally just said, okay, we won't do the no buffer time anymore, and then she created something called the Boimler effect, which means don't you can have your buffer time, and then Boimler, I mean, he likes the idea of something being named after them, but then he realizes this is something that allows people to slack off more, which is not what he is for. He actually likes the workaholic type of attitude.
Yes.
So he didn't like that part. So, and that fits Boimler and his character. I mean, he's the one who is high strung. He's the one who was so excited to be there and wants to get a lot of work done and get promoted and get noticed. Mm-hmm. So the irony that he had this lazy expression named after him.
It was curious.
It was curious. But the best thing about this is when they're showing the little future thing at the end, where they have the teacher talking to her students, and then when she says the most important person in Starfleet history, and it's O'Brien.
That was the best part of the whole show, I thought.
Definitely. That was funny. Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, being big fans of Orion, especially with Deep Space Nine, and then you realize how long his character has been primarily in the background.
Yeah.
Starting out in the background of the first episode of Next Generation, we've come to love him over the years. So,
yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
and we love his ethic. We love his family life. We love his personality. So I like that part. And the reference to Gene Roddenberry, Great Bird of the Galaxy.
Oh, when they said the Great Bird of the Galaxy. That was good, too. Yeah, so they threw these great things in right at the end.
That's my favorite part of the show, actually, is the Easter eggs.
Yeah, the Easter eggs are fun. I mean, even seeing the planet of the crystals, when we saw it on the trailer, I was thinking it was going to be the planet that was in the episode The Last Outpost, which I call the French fry planet. Those look like giant French fries, but they lit up like crystals. So a few things. Oh, and they did say Kirk. Mariner says that Ransom reminds her of Kirk. She did mention something about that. Yep. I mean, they throw out these little things. So the show is going to become, just watch it for how many references you can see to other Star Trek shows.
That's the main thing that I enjoy out of this, by far. So far with the show, has you found this episode better, worse, or about the same as the previous ones that we've seen?
This one I thought was worse. I thought it was to me it was more boring than the others. I mean, I had hopes for it before this episode. But when we get to the next one, I think the next one was a little bit better. It's like this one episode, Temporal Edict, was sort of just a misstep, and maybe it'll still get better.
So let's talk about the next episode.
Moist Vessel. So
again, just the name itself, it's their feeble attempt at comedy.
It's a weird name, yeah.
Because that's supposed to be one of the top words that people feel uncomfortable with. Now, let me say this. If the Orville did this 2 years ago, you'd have certain Star Trek fans saying, that's not funny, that's offensive, that's annoying. But as long as it has the Star Trek stamp on it, it's considered humorous. I don't get it. When I see people who trash the Orville but then praise Lower Decks, it's so bizarre to me not to have an even playing field with comedy or lack of comedy in a sci-fi show. I'm trying to figure out this show. I'm trying to figure out the comedy of it. Go ahead. I'm going to let you explain it because you like it more than I do.
So we got to see the other ship, the sister ship of the Cerritos, and it was called the Merced, which apparently is another city in California. Mm-hmm. It's the California class starships. So we have Mariner. Yeah, this is the one about Mariner and her and the captain. And in the beginning, Mariner is in a meeting of the captain with the visitors from the Merced, mm-hmm. and Mariner is yawning. Oh, and I mean it's like, so the captain sort of doesn't like that Mariner is yawning during this meeting, and she's just doing something like passing out coffee.
It's just so un-Starfleet like.
Well, but the thing is, but I've been there. I mean, I've yawned at meetings before, but mm-hmm. but I know Mariner was doing in this big annoying way. Mm-hmm. It's like she was trying to let everyone know she was bored. Definitely, yeah. And it begs the question, like why does Mariner stay in
just
Starfleet?
Leave Starfleet then?
Well, I came up with an explanation, but just to say this,
all right, I want to hear it.
So, I mean, you would think she wouldn't have to stay in Starfleet because this is supposed to be a world where people don't need to work for money. So, yes, why would you keep a job you don't like?
Do you know how many times I've been exhausted at work and I shut my mouth, I put on a smile because I need money? If I'm in a place where I don't need money, I'm not playing this game.
Right.
I'll find something I like doing.
And both of her parents are Starfleet. I mean, it could be that her parents are making her stay, but with Mariner,
I don't get that feeling.
Being the type of character she is, right?
Yeah.
You would think
she's a loudmouth. She's going to do whatever she wants.
Yeah, do what she wants to do. But then you have to think of the previous episodes. She met an old Klingon friend. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe she knows that being in Starfleet is the best way to travel, to meet new people. And when you think about the first episode where she took the tools to the farmers, mm-hmm. she has a certain opportunity to do the things that Starfleet won't do, to sort of fill in the holes.
Go on a transport ship.
Yeah, you're still thinking there's other ways to do it.
Of course there are.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. She could be on a trading vessel. She doesn't have to be part of Starfleet. There's cargo ships.
There are things she could do. So, yeah, so maybe that is something that'll come out later as to why she's actually there. But I mean, it's a good point, and it's something that you can see in this episode too. Well, even in this episode though, she does wind up helping her mother. They do like almost make up, but then in the end, you know how she only got promoted because her mother knew she wouldn't like it, which is what happened. She didn't like it, but then she got demoted again. But you see how she and her mother almost had that rapport. They did start working together in this episode, mm-hmm. but then later on it's just sort of, it goes back to where it was in the beginning. She's an ensign again. She's back in the lower decks part of the ship. Okay, so let's talk about the other storyline with Tendi, mm-hmm. the Orion girl. Now, she was going to this ascension, and I thought that part was neat, the ascension ceremony. Mm-hmm. But then when Tendi messed up the sand sculpture that
actually was pretty funny. Because
you thought that was funny.
Well, I mean, because both of us are involved we're involved in Shambhala Buddhism, so we understand. I mean, it takes forever to do stuff like that. I don't have the patience for it, but it is pretty impressive.
It is.
Knowing that's done, so we know the various rituals that are involved. So there was actually a common denominator. We could watch this and say, okay, they got this right. They got a lot right about Buddhism in here. But the whole over the top thing of, oh, I'm dropping the gong. Oh, I'm tripping over sand. I mean, it was like Adam Sandler-ish ridiculous.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before, how the comedy, Star Trek as a comedy just doesn't work for us as well.
Yeah.
And see what...
But they got the details right.
Okay,
about Buddhism.
But having Tendi be the one that messed up the sand sculpture, I just kind of... I mean, I didn't want her to be
She shouldn't be the goop ball.
I mean, because it was already established that Boimler is the klutzy one, mm-hmm. and now Tendi has to be a klutz too. I mean, having one klutz was bad enough. Mm-hmm. So that was the part I didn't like.
I see where you're coming from. I see what you're saying, yes.
But it was neat the way that he did ascend in the end, And the idea about the going to a higher plane of existence and being this ball of light, which we've seen before on Star Trek. Mm-hmm. That's another Star Trek cliche. The ascending to a higher type of evolution. And if we could mention Dr. Noor, the expert biologist on Star Trek, and he said that that these highly evolved beings of energy, I mean, they're not really more evolved than we are. It's just that they evolved in a different way. So it's something that Star Trek really has always gotten wrong in that instance about evolution.
And we're almost bracing ourselves waiting for it, because anytime you mention to someone that you practice any form of Buddhism, it's that extremist that I'm waiting to be taken away, I'm waiting to turn into something else. And they went there with that, right?
They kind of, and showing when he had the visions. No, it was interesting that when he evolved, that it was painful to him. That's something that we've never seen before on Star Trek, that it's painful. But so that was neat. But then it was very interesting that they showed the visions, that he saw the koala, which is supposed to represent peacefulness or innocence or something like that. It was a neat scene. So that's why I like, this one I liked better than the previous episode.
I did like the aspect, and we've seen the t-shirts before from years ago, Trek yourself before you wreck yourself, and has Spock doing the Vulcan signs, kind of look like gang signs.
Yes.
And Mariner kept doing that. Like, you can see that's going to be a trending things at cons going forward.
Yes, and her mother saying something like, "Don't give me that fake Vulcan salute." Mm-hmm. That was okay. I still like the real Vulcan salute, but...
Yeah. But what do you think about having an A and B part to this show? I mean, it's such a short show in itself. It's less than a half hour. So essentially each story is roughly 12, 13 minutes.
Right, and so they're doing it, and doing two storylines. No, I think it's okay, though. I kind of...
As opposed to having one continuous one?
Right, because if they had one continuous, it seems like then it would be more serious, which they don't want to do, I guess.
I see what you're saying, yes.
And the storyline with the other ship, the sleeper ship that was supposed to be terraforming, it was supposed to be a terraforming ship. Mm-hmm. That was an interesting thing too, and and again, terraforming is a big thing on Star Trek as well.
Sure,
they've mentioned how they terraform other planets, and it's been used a lot in the novels too. So I like that idea. That's another Star Trek trope that they use that works because it fits in the storyline of colonizing planets and doing more for yourself and humanity, creating more places where people can live and expand and grow.
Sure. And knowing that the Cerritos is a ship that's not going to do first contacts, it's not going to be the ship of immediate diplomacy, this would be in line of what the whole point of being on the Cerritos is. So I think it actually makes sense in the Star Trek universe.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and join our Facebook group. Live long, and may the Force be with you. Nanu Nanu.